Greenpeace breaks into Charles De Gaulle Airport and vandalize a Boeing 777 aircraft. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to talk about an interesting incident that happened at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, where Greenpeace activists broke into the airport and spray painted green paint all over a parked Boeing 777 aircraft that was inactive due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I will leave a link to the article I'll be reading in this video in the description box down below, because it is really interesting, and I'm going to be honest, it's something that you don't really see too often. And also, I do recommend the actual website that's from. It's from a website called Mentor Pilot. He's a pilot that talks about different aspects of aviation. I'm not gonna lie, I really love this guy's content, so I do recommend you go check him out if you're interested. Now before I get into it, please like and share this video to give it a boost. Greenpeace vandalize Air France 777 parked for a year. Members of the French branch of Greenpeace broke into Charles de Gaulle Airport and proceeded to vandalize a parked Air France Boeing 777. The aircraft that Greenpeace vandalized is a Boeing 777-228ER. Now I'm not going to go through the tail number because it's not relevant. It left the factory in Everett, Washington in the spring of 1998, so it is nearly 23 years old. Put that into some perspective, that's slightly younger than me. So it just kind of showed the longevity of aircraft. They have a long service life. Air France is its only operator. The airline last flew it in mid-March 2020. They put it in long-term storage on the 18th of March in Charles de Gaulle Airport, where it is today. Fortunately for the jet that Greenpeace vandalized, it appears to have tape on all the pitot static ports, doors and other openings. Now I will say this, it really is a good thing that those coverings were there, given the fact that there have been accidents in the past where those ports have been blocked and paint would block them. So just to tell you what they're for, the pitot static ports are responsible for airspeed and altitude. Both very important pieces of information. To paint the aircraft, they used rollers and what first appears like a spray. It is probably the kind of hand-pumped sprayer that typically sees use for releasing pesticides and insecticides. An interesting choice. And I agree, it's interesting they choose a pesticide-spreading sprayer given the fact that they're environmentalists. Not a great start, guys. Why would Greenpeace vandalize a mothballed Boeing 777? There are more mothballed Air France 777s in the same part of the airport. We don't yet know how Greenpeace were able to enter the airport and proceed to vandalize the jet. Now I'm going to say something on that real quick. It's something I do think the airport needs to look at. Where and how did these guys get in? Because security in an airport is very strict, especially when it comes to gaining access to aircraft. Take this from someone who used to work at an airport, that I would say the threat level to it was low. They were very strict still. Both because they need to by law, and both because it's a serious job. They need to ensure that nothing happens. Because if something happens, it's on them. But it appears they spent enough time to do it, while taking pictures and video next to it and on it. It seems that the Greenpeace activists took issue with the French government's plans for aircraft that produce lower emissions. Rather than trying for greener planes, they think aviation should be scaled down massively in favour of other forms of transport. For instance, they think trains should be doing all routes taking up to 6 hours, and it appears that Greenpeace's method for illustrating this point was to vandalize an aircraft. That this aircraft is for journeys that a train or ship would take several days to cover seems irrelevant. And that's another interesting point I will say, because planes are much faster than trains, which is why people use planes for the longer journeys, because it'll get them to their destination faster. Trains just simply aren't quick enough, or actually as efficient, both in terms of timing and actually, to be fair, environmentally speaking, they're not as efficient. As we have discussed previously, painting and stripping paint off a plane is both time consuming and challenging. It involves using powerful solvents, often toxic and dangerous for crews to use. True, because paint is they're very specific when it comes to aircraft, and so you do need to be careful what kind of paint is applied to a plane. And obviously the Greenpeace activists didn't actually take into account the damage that the paint could do to the aircraft. To be honest, I think they meant for it to do damage. So, of course, we don't know what type of paint Greenpeace used to vandalise the jet, but previous initiatives where they've released paint onto roads did not involve biodegradable paints. Again, interesting considering that this is paint used by environmentalists. Before the pandemic, an international discussion about the need for lower emissions for air travel was taking place, and it's an interesting conversation when it's done by people who are reasonable, because I do want planes that produce lower and lower emissions, because you do want less emissions in the sky. No one really wants more. So then the pandemic caused the biggest and most long-lasting reduction in air travel in history. It seems ironic that Greenpeace would vandalise one of the planes that stopped flying for this reason. There are many aircraft out there that aren't nearly as efficient as the Boeing 777. I'd say there were some in that airfield. So they didn't really plan this well. But of course, again, Greenpeace, planning isn't their strong suit. Now, I will say this, there are 2 comments on this article. I'm not going to show them because it'll make the people who comment them identifiable. I don't want to do that. The first comment is basically calling out Greenpeace as being an anti-aircraft activist group, which they're not specifically anti-aircraft, but they are anti-aircraft, to be fair. And it kind of calls them out on their ignorance, on, like, they're going after a plane that's designed to be more efficient and better for the environment than previous ones. The second comment on this, I will say, is very interesting. And it's a comment that brings up the point of financial liability. Because these were Greenpeace activists, should Greenpeace be financially liable for the damage to the aircraft? Yes, I do think so. Because it was their activists that vandalised the plane, and it's Greenpeace. We know they have the money to do it. This is an interesting story to me because it actually kind of combines 2 things I'm really interested in, and that's aviation and politics. Although I haven't actually talked about environmentalism yet. So I do have strong opinions about it, but it's something I haven't delved into yet on this channel. I might in the future. But it's interesting this, because getting no planes at all flying, to cut emissions from the aviation industry completely, right now is going to be next to impossible. Because there's nothing to replace it with. And trains, buses, public transport aren't fast enough or capable enough to traverse these distances in a reasonable amount of time. Which is why people use planes. Now, I do want planes to become more efficient and produce lower emissions. I think that's fair to say. My big issue with this is, what is this going to achieve? Nothing. And I do hope that Greenpeace are actually brought to court and made to pay for that damage to the aircraft. Because damaging aircraft is serious. Now again, I do say this. The airport need to find out how these guys got in and fill that hole. There's a hole in security there and it needs to be fixed. I do think the Greenpeace activists should be held responsible for their actions, and Greenpeace should also be held responsible for the actions of their activists. So what do you guys think? Share your thoughts with me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear them. And if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with my latest videos. I will say this, this is an interesting incident, and I think it kind of shows the ignorance of the environmentalist movement. It also shows a lack of awareness, given the fact that they vandalized the plane that is meant to be more efficient. You need to be real, guys. And if you're not, reality is just going to smack you in the ass. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.